I never imagined I'd be humiliated at a wedding, only to find out I was the long-lost daughter. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. A swirl of laughter and clinking glasses filled the air. The scent of roses was overwhelming, but nothing could mask the sour knot in my stomach. I stood there, wrapped in my pale blue dress, feeling like an outsider in a sea of celebration. Friends and family twirled about, while I felt frozen, nails digging into my palm, heart pounding like a drum. It started out as a day of joy, one that promised to erase the shadows of the past. My best friend, Mia, was getting married. She was radiant, the picture of happiness, while I felt lost in a corner. I thought, maybe, the smiles would lift my spirits too. But then, during the ceremony, the air shifted. A woman, unfamiliar and striking, rose from the pews. Her eyes locked onto me, filled with a mix of surprise and turmoil. I could feel my cheeks heat. Whispers erupted. Who is she? I thought she was someone else. Frozen, my heart raced, an icy hand clutched at my throat. Who was this? Her presence was magnetic, yet terrifying. The officiant's voice faded into the background as her gaze bore down on me, a connection that felt ancient and haunting. The murmurs grew louder. My mind raced back to my childhood, memories like flickering shadows. My mother, distant and secretive. She always spoke in riddles about my family. But I never imagined this. Was this woman part of my hidden past? Could she be family? Tears burned at the corners of my eyes, threatening to betray my composure. I blinked them away, but the world around me was crumbling. Suddenly, MIA's joyful "I do" rang out, but all I felt was the weight of every questioning stare. The room spun, voices blended into a jumbled mess. She's just a friend. I tried to convince myself, but something deep inside me craved answers. I could hear MIA's laughter, but all I wanted was clarity. The woman's presence held stories untold and secrets buried. The ceremony slipped into chaos as guests stared, some with intrigue, others with disdain. Hearts beat rapidly in the awkward tension. Then, she stepped closer. You don't know, do you? Her voice was soft but sharp, like ice sliding down my spine. My breath hitched, the world froze around us. I wanted to scream, to run. Instead, I stood paralyzed as the crowd hushed, anticipation crackling in the air. Am your mother? The words hung in the air, thick and heavy. My chest tightened, tears streaming down my face. Was this a cruel joke? Panic seized my heart, fogging my mind. The room felt like it was crumbling. No, that's impossible. The pit of my stomach dropped as reality twisted like a dagger. And just like that, the truth rushed at me, wild and chaotic. Who was I? Who had I been all this time? The stunning veil of my identity began to unravel in that wedding hall. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. I stumbled back, as though the ground had been ripped from beneath my feet. The chaos around me blurred to a dull roar. Laughter and clinks of glasses faded into the background like ghosts of a shattered moment. My chest heaved with confusion and disbelief. I searched the crowd for a familiar face, someone to anchor me to the reality I once knew, a reality that felt like it belonged to someone else entirely. Your mother? I repeated, almost choking on the words. My voice was a weak thread fraying with doubt. The woman, with her striking features and an aura of unyielding resolve, nodded slowly, her eyes tender yet piercing. The crowd felt alive, their whispers slicing through me, but my focus was solely on her, as if she alone could explain this tragic tapestry into which I had unwittingly stumbled. Before I could think of a response, Mia rushed to my side, worry etching her brow. Are you okay? She asked, genuine concern breaking through her joy. The celebration crumbled around me as I felt her steady presence. I opened my mouth, but the weight of truth bore down too heavily. Instead, I shook my head instinctively, tears still tracing paths down my cheeks, feeling the warmth of a friend's embrace feel both soothing and suffocating. The woman stepped closer, ignoring the gasps and murmurs. I promise I never meant to hurt you, but I had to come today. I need you to understand. Her voice wavered, vulnerability peeling back the facade of the stranger standing before me. Something deep within me stirred a strange longing for connection mingled with confusion and anger. Mia placed a hand on my shoulder. You need to talk to her. Maybe you could understand. Her suggestion hung in the air, fragile as a gossamer thread. But understanding seemed an insurmountable leap. You think I could just approach her? After I couldn't finish the thought. After everything I had endured with my own mother, the secrets. The silence now, standing in front of me, was a woman who should have been part of my life. But how could I trust a fragment of my shattered past? As if sensing my hesitance, the woman spoke again. What I did, leaving, it was a mistake born of desperation, but it doesn't define you. I recoiled, an unconscious reflex driven by pain. Define me? You think you can just come here and mend years of absence with sweet words? The hurt spilled out, uncontrolled. I felt an unfamiliar strength in my anger, empowered yet haunted by its intensity. I know I took too long to find you, but I've spent every moment wanting to reach out to explain, she continued, her tone more urgent now. Please, just let me explain. The gathering around us had devolved into judgment and scrutiny, every curious gaze boring into my skin. I felt like a marionette, strings pulled by fear and unwanted attention. I turned to Mia, seeking solace in her presence. Can we just leave? I whispered, desperation lacing my voice. But even as the words escaped, a flicker of something else, something deeper sparked within me. I found myself drawn to this woman, caught between the allure of revelation and the anguish of betrayal. The dance between the past and the present became a strange waltz where pain and curiosity intertwined. And then, just as I exhaled, a pause broke the intensity of the moment. A kind man from the guest list stepped forward, eyes wide and remorseful. I'm sorry. I know your mother, he said cautiously, his gaze bouncing between us. It's true. She's been searching for you a long time, never stopped. I didn't think I would see this happen here. Reality twisted within me again as a cascade of emotions rushed in. This wasn't just a fabrication. It was history colliding with my present, bearing truths I had never asked to uncover. Alfred, stop, the woman interjected, her voice breaking, desperately trying to stop the narrative before it could spiral. But the damage was done. I felt my world shift again, the pieces clicking unnaturally together, leaving me vulnerable and exposed. Searching for me? I murmured, disbelief coating my words. The storm of emotions intensified as I stood before two strangers, both connected to the life I hadn't lived, yet desperately craved validation from. The tension weaved tightly, spinning strands of confusion in every direction. Just as I began to process the revelations, the piercing sound of sirens echoed from outside the venue, slicing through the moment just as my heart twisted once more. As guests turned to look at the windows, the door slammed open. A familiar face appeared, me stepfather, drenched in anxiety, his eyes locking onto mine. Olivia, we need to go now, he called, panic etched in every line on his face. My heart dropped, confusion overtaking my senses. Who was I? The question lingered heavier than the sirens, amplified by the chaos around me. The momentary hope I had grasped shattered into pieces, leaving behind a void, and in that expanse, uncertainty loomed, threatening to consume me whole. The world dimmed as I took in my stepfather's frantic expression. My heart raced, but it wasn't just fear that twisted within me. It was a budding curiosity, an insatiable need for answers that rendered me rooted to the spot. The sirens wailed louder, a call to urgency that felt foreign amidst the emotional storm swirling around me. Now, he insisted, eyes darting toward the exit. The urgency in his voice cut through the chaos, and I felt the presence of the two strangers, me mother and her ally, shrink away. Suddenly, I was no longer at the center of a drama. I was merely a terrified girl grappling with the bent truths of her existence, caught between the warmth of a friend and the coldness of a past I never truly understood. Mia grasped my arm, her grip strong and grounding. Olivia, you need to go. We can figure this out later, she whispered, her breath soft yet firm against my ear. For a heartbeat, I wanted to agree. I wanted to flee this nightmare of an evening, escape to the sanctuary of my normalcy. But in the recesses of my heart, the longing to peel back the layers of my birthright prevented me from moving. "Let's not do this here," my mother said gently, her voice a strange balm against my raging turmoil. "We can talk. I promise you. I want to make sense of everything." My stepfather stepped closer, still holding on to my gaze, forcing me to focus on the present moment. "There's no time for this now. We need to leave." He glanced at the door, as if expecting some malicious force to follow us. In that split second between stay and go, the tension reached a boiling point. I half-jogged toward the exit, propelled by a mix of inexplicability and fear, but the gaze of my blood lingered like a phantom in my mind. Just before stepping outside, I risked one final glance back. She stood alone amidst the crowd, her face a canvas of regret and determination. The night air hit me hard, cool and stinging, as if to wake me from a fevered dream. The sirens were closer now, their cacophony piercing through the veil of confusion clouding my thoughts. I stumbled into the parking lot, my stepfather's grip still firm on my elbow, his urgency palpable. "What's happening?" I breathed, my voice a whisper layered with uncertainty. Why were the sirens? But before I could articulate my mounting questions, another specter emerged from the shadows, a figure cloaked in disappointment and metastasized secrets. It was my mother's companion, Alfred, the same man who had unwittingly opened the floodgates of my family's past. "Olivia," he called, his voice clipped and strained, punctuated with panic. "Please, listen to me." My breath caught as I turned back, torn between the instinct to flee and an instinctual yearning to understand. This was the man who knew more than had let on. The truth seemed to ripple around me like a restless tide, pulling every hair on my neck toward him. "Let's go," my stepfather urged again, pulling me toward our car, but I dug my heels into the gravel. "You just said she was searching for me," I managed to croak out, facing him as though I could summon the strength to extract every detail locked in his mind. "What else do you know?" Alfred hesitated, his eyes darting toward the sirens, and for a brief moment, the crowded chaos melted into an eerie stillness. "I know things aren't what they seem, Olivia. Your mother, she wanted to reach you. There's so much more behind her leaving." He motioned toward my stepfather, who stood rigid, a storm brewing just beneath the surface, unspoken words building a silent wall between us. "Stop it." My stepfather's voice turned fierce, a protective shield enveloping him as he stepped in front of me. "We're leaving now. You don't need to hear any more of this." But in that clash of wills, my world trembled again. It wasn't just my future, fragile and wavering on the precipice of unanswered questions. It was a long-lost history unraveling before my very eyes. I felt a pulse of raw courage fill my chest and edged closer to Alfred, brushing past the immovable barrier of my stepfather. "What do you know?" The urgency in my voice pierced through the tumult as I took a fearless step toward my own fate. "Olivia," he said softly, "there's something deeper about your mother's past. Something that could change everything." But before he could finish, the sudden blare of police sirens drowned out his words. The screeching reality of the moment pulled my attention, forcing a surge of feeling into the pit of my stomach. Then a sharp shout launched from behind the growing cluster of police cars, leaving me breathless. "Olivia, get back!" A shadowy figure emerged, and I recognized the unmistakable outline of one of my friends, Jamie, rushing forward fearfully, panic etched on every feature. "Get away from them!" he screamed, despair mingling with fury, just as the air crackled with electric uncertainty. Me family, my identity, my truth, spiraling dangerously toward an unknown climax. I stood frozen, torn between the urgency of Jamie's voice and the looming confrontation painted against the frenetic backdrop of flashing red and blue lights. My heart raced at the implication caught in those words: me mother, her secrets, and the impending storm of uncertainties now swirling dangerously close. "Jamie, wait," I called, my voice trembling as I instinctively stepped in front of my stepfather, desperately trying to shield myself from the chaos encroaching on my life. I wasn't sure whether I felt more fear for the truth lurking behind Alfred's cryptic declarations or the visible distress etched on Jamie's face. "Olivia, you have to listen," he shouted as he drew nearer, fear tightening his voice like a noose. "This isn't safe. You can't trust them." His eyes flashed toward my stepfather, who remained a silent sentinel, tension radiating off him like waves of heat. Jamie, you don't understand. I shook my head, trying to grasp the threads of reality slipping through my fingers. At that moment, I didn't want to run. I wanted to stand my ground, to claim my fractured identity amidst the turmoil. Alfred knows something. Something about my mother. Jamie's face crumpled, hurt flickering beneath his concern. What does it matter? Whatever it is, it'll only drag you deeper into this mess. You need to think about your safety, not the past. Safety? Alfred's low voice interrupted the tension, laced with a bitterness that cut through the air. Your mother would never forgive herself if you became a pawn in this game. They think they can silence the truth, but you deserve to know. The weight of those words hung around us like an invisible shroud. My chest tightened, the emotions boiling just beneath the surfacia mixture of doubt and determination clashing, each vying for dominance. Perhaps it was the flicker of the sirens or the echo of Jamie's concern that spurred clarity in that moment. I was caught in a vortex, teetering on the edge of knowing who I might truly be. Suddenly, instinct clawed at my spirit, and the frayed edges that made up my inner strength rippled to life. I won't run away anymore, I whispered resolutely, though uncertainty lurked in my heart. I deserve to find out what all of this means. Before anyone could react, a fierce cry erupted from the shadows of chaos, a voice both familiar and haunting. Olivia. No. It was Mia, rushing forward like a beacon of light, her fear palpable. You're making a mistake. Enough. My stepfather's voice boomed, the authority cutting through the rising din. We're leaving, now. He reached for me, but I stepped away, feeling the ground beneath my feet shift. This wasn't just about self-preservation anymore. It was about uncovering the truth. The strands of hidden secrets began to weave together in my mind, forming a tapestry too intricate to ignore. Alfred turned, desperation woven into his words. Olivia, it's not just your mother's past at risk. There are forces at play that want to keep you from the truth, because if you discover it, everything changes. His voice faltered, revealing fear that echoed my own in a strange, unsettling harmony. Then, like a cruel twist of fate, sirens suddenly crescendoed into a deafening frenzy, and the air buzzed with frantic energy. Uncertainty morphed into palpable tension that pierced through the twilight. A police officer emerged from the throng, urgency marking every line on his face as he approached us. Mia took a step back, eyes wide with realization, while Jamie clenched his fists at his sides. In that moment of suspended animation, it struck me like a bolt of lightning. This wasn't merely a family confrontation. It was a confluence of lives converging on the brink of truth, secrets, and choices that could reverberate through our futures. Suddenly, the officer shouted, "Everyone, back away. We need to secure the area. There's a suspect we're pursuing." Each word sent a chill spiraling down my spine, echoed by the silent tension crackling between us. The indication of danger lurked in the periphery, a reminder that the conflict we were entangled in was far larger than myself or my family's. Fractured past. Alfred, I gasped, meeting his gaze as a million unasked questions surged within me. What did you mean by forces? What else is at stake? But the officer called for reinforcements, urgency suspended with the authority of his voice. And as I looked back toward my family, their worried faces pressing closer, I felt an overwhelming clarity pierce through my chaos. The truth I sought was just out of reach, and the journey toward it would come with unexpected sacrifices. Get down. The officer shouted once more, but it was too late. A gunshot rang out, reverberating through the air. Time stretched painfully, and I dropped to the ground instinctively as a surge of terror coursed through me. Everything erupted into chaos. Shouts melded with the cacophony of sirens, and as the world spun into an array of blurred colors and muffled cries, I suddenly found myself questioning the reality I thought I knew. The last fleeting thought that gripped me was not just the fear of what lay ahead, but the haunting awareness that the revelations waiting on the horizon could forever change everything: me, family, my identity, my very essence. And just as darkness threatened to encase us all, something deep within whispered that the threads of fate were pulling tight, connecting us in ways I had yet to comprehend. I blinked against the haze enveloping me, as if the world had shifted beyond recognition. The echo of the gunshots still reverberated in my ears, twisting through the frantic air. Around me, shadows danced, piercing screams mingled with the heartbeat of my own terror, and in that tumultuous sea, I felt strangely detached, floating just beyond reach of reality. Olivia. Jamie's voice cut through the chaos, raw and desperate as he bounded toward me. I could see the trembling in his hands as he reached for my arm, grounding me once more amidst the pandemonium. "It's all right," I murmured, my voice faint and unsteady, though I could hear the tremor that laced my words. My heart thudded in my chest, each beat resonating with fear and uncertainty, but I wanted him to be okay, to experience at least a sliver of hope in this bleak moment. Stay down," Alfred shouted from behind me, his arms flinging outward protectively. The fear emanating from him was palpable, yet I couldn't shake the nagging suspicion that there was something deeper beneath the surface of his panic. The officers were barking orders, and bewildered voices rose and fell in a jarring symphony of chaos. I scanned the area, my pulse quickening as I searched for Mia in the crowd, instinctively wanting to ensure she was unharmed. Just as I found her, crouched low, wide-eyed with disbelief, my heart ached at the picture of fear written across her face. The faint glimmer of resolve flickered through the dark corners of my mind. I couldn't let this moment define me. I wasn't just a bystander in someone else's tragedy. I was at the center of it, and whatever secrets lay buried in the past needed to rise to the surface. "Jamie," I said again, this time with more resolve, even as the raging storm of confusion swirled around us. "We can't let this stop us. I need to learn the truth about my mother and whatever it is that Alfred holds back that I know," he pleaded, searching my gaze for a sign that we could return to normalcy. I could see the uncertainty in his eyes, but there was also faith hiding within, a bond that transcended the chaos surrounding us. "I just don't want to lose you." His confession wrapped around my heart, igniting something warm in the cold grip of fear. I could feel the connection we had deepening, interwoven with my unresolved fears. "You want," I promised, my voice steadier now. "I'm right here. But it feels like there's so much more out there, waiting for us." Before Jamie could answer, another loud bang echoed through the night, a sound more alarming than the gunshot. At first, I thought it was gunfire again, but when I forced myself to focus, it registered as the sound of a car engine roaring to life, tires screeching against the asphalt like a desperate animal attempting to flee. The chaos around us seemed to dissolve momentarily as heads turned towards the noise, an instinctive reaction to danger. That's when I spotted a dark figure sprinting across the street, illuminated momentarily by the flashing lights. My heart dropped as recognition struck me like a bolt. Morgan. The woman who had walked into my life like a gust of fresh air, yet left just as quickly, always a shadow at the edge of my thoughts. What was she doing here, at this moment, and why was she running? "Olivia, come on," Alfred shouted, drawing my attention once more with a grasp that felt both urgent and possessive. "We need to get back," but I couldn't tear my gaze away from the figure. Morgan may have held the key to the mystery behind my mother's past, her voice offering fragmented shadows of truths. Understanding flickered in my soul like a distant star, and I suddenly felt the overwhelming urge to chase after her, to uncover what she had once hinted at. Perhaps in her escape lay answers to the identity I had been striving to grasp. With a determined burst of energy, I pulled away from Jamie and Alfred, ignoring their protests, racing toward the departing figure. My feet pounded against the ground, adrenaline coursing through me as I sprinted blindly, weaving through the unfolding commotion around me. The sirens wailed, but the world had narrowed down to just one thing: finding Morgan. "Olivia?" I heard Jamie's voice echo behind me, tinged with a mix of fear and admiration. But it was as if an unseen force propelled me forward, my instincts sharpened to a point. I had to know. I had to understand. It felt as if the very fibers of reality tugged at each thread of my existence, beckoning me closer to a truth buried beyond reach. "Morgan," I called out, desperation mingling with motivation. "Wait, please." As I rounded the corner, the blur of lights and distant shouts faded into the background, and for a moment, I believed that maybe, just maybe, I could grasp the clarity I so desperately sought, that being connected to her might stitch the wounds of my past into a tapestry whole enough to carry forward into the chaos riffing my life. Then, just as I thought I might reach her, I skidded to an abrupt halt. the ground shifting beneath me in a surreal moment of realization. A figure stood in front of Morgan, a glint of metal reflecting the harsh light of the street lamps. A gun was leveled at her, and the moment expanded into unbearable tension. Time froze, fear paralyzing me as the implications clawed at my throat. "Olivia!" I heard Jamie shout again, but all I could think was how the truths hidden in the layers of my life were converging into this vivid, horror-stricken tableau, the threat of everything unspooling just as I stood on the precipice of understanding. And in that heart-stopping moment, beneath the mounting pressure and chaos, I felt a chill that slithered down my spine as the universe whispered that I was about to learn something even more staggering than I could have ever imagined. The world narrowed into a singular focus as I stood frozen at the sight before me. Morgan, with fear etched upon her face, and the glint of a gun aimed directly at her. Time stretched, a taut string ready to snap, and the chaotic sounds of sirens and shouts became an indistinct echo. My heart raced, blood pounding in my ears, drowning out every rational thought. For a breathless moment, everything else faded away. "Don't move," barked the man holding the gun, his voice rough and commanding. I took a deep breath, drawing on every ounce of strength within me to maintain my composure, but my mind was a whirlwind of uncertainty. I couldn't let him hurt Morgan, not when answers were so tantalizingly close. "Morgan!" I shouted again, trying to gauge her reaction. Her wide eyes darted toward mine, a flicker of recognition mixed with horror, as if she was anticipating what was about to unfold. My very soul trembled with the weight of untold stories, secrets unsaid, and a connection waiting to be revealed. "Olivia, get back." Jamie's voice penetrated the haze, a reminder of the world spinning out of control behind me. His urgent plea began to anchor me, drawing me away from the precipice of impending chaos. "No," I yelled back, the word escaping my lips like a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. "I won't let you hurt her." The intensity of the moment ignited something within me, a fierce determination that surged forward, battling against the formless fear gripping my heart. "Morgan, please, just tell me the truth," I implored, desperation tearing through my voice. "Whatever it is, I can handle it. Just hold on." In that heartbeat of madness, the man with the gun seemed to waver for a split second, his harsh gaze faltering as he processed the urgency in my tone. For a fleeting moment, our eyes locked, me voice an echo of something deeper, an unbroken connection reaching out into the void. But he recovered too quickly, the resolve sharpening his features again. "Morgan, you're coming with me," he said, his gun unwavering. But there was a weakness beneath his bravado, an inner turmoil that stirred in the depths. Fear, desperation, and an inexplicable tension hung palpably in the air. What was his connection to Morgan? Why was she so important? "You don't have to do this," I pleaded, feeling the raw vulnerability thrumming through my voice, hoping to appeal to whatever remnants of humanity lay within him. "What happened? Just put the gun down. We can work this out," I said. "Don't move," he shouted, and my heart plummeted. The desperation intensified, spiraling out of control like a wheel teetering on the edge of a cliff. That moment, I felt Jamie's presence at my back, a grounding force that reminded me I wasn't alone, despite the overwhelming fear blooming inside me. "Olivia, we can't risk it," he urged, his voice a quiet plea tempered with worry, but I couldn't turn away. Down the twisting corridors of my mind, the memories of Morgan, the truths she hinted at, the mother I had lost flashed before me, and I found the courage to step forward, as if propelled by a force beyond my comprehension. "Please," I urged the man again, even as dread gripped my heart. "Whatever this is about, you can stop it now. You can let her go and tell me what you know." He hesitated again, and I seized the opportunity, inching forward in a way that felt instinctual. "Morgan, help me," I whispered, momentarily letting my gaze meet hers, embracing hope in the midst of despair. Just as the tenuous moment stretched on the edge of fear, the unpredictable chaos of life took another turn. The clamor of sirens grew nearer, the cacophony of voices muffled as they raced toward this scene of uncertainty. I could hear the shouts of officers, feel the dread of an impending confrontation just moments away. But then, as if the universe could hold no more tension, a gunshot rang out, not the one directed at Morgan, but closer, far more threatening. The impact rocked my world, sending chilling shockwaves spiraling through my very core as confusion erupted in the chaos of the street. The man holding Morgan faltered, shock piercing through his expression, and I saw the fleeting opportunity dance before us like a flicker of light amidst darkness. "Run!" I screamed, my body moving instinctively as adrenaline surged through me. Before I could process what was happening, Morgan dove towards the ground, breaking his grip, and I lunged forward to meet her momentum. We collapsed together, escaping the line of fire as chaos erupted around us, adrenaline flooding our bodies. "Are you okay?" I gasped, breathless, looking into her eyes, those stormy depths holding promises of revelation and redemption. But as she met my gaze, her expression morphed from fear to something more profound, something that pierced through the noise of the present, igniting long-buried emotions. "You need to know," she choked out, her voice barely rising above the chaos. A moment stretched, charged with anticipation. What? What I need to know? I pressed, urgency pulsating in my veins as the world swirled around us. Alfred, Jamie, the chaotic energy of the streets, all fading into background noise. The chaos momentarily dulled, and amidst the whirlwind, her lips parted. "You're not just the daughter of..." But before she could finish, another explosion of sound echoed through the air, more violent than the first, the unmistakable crack of a gunshot once more, and my heart dropped. A figure collapsed onto the pavement behind us, and every instinct in my body screamed to flee. However morbidly fascinated I felt by the truth hanging just out of reach. As I turned, the world narrowed again, and I felt the tremble of fate in the air, a revelation dangling on the precipice of disaster, its echo beckoning for clarity amid the chaos, just a whisper away from changing everything I thought I knew. Our breaths mingled in the tense silence, each moment stretching like two hands grasping at shadows. Morgan's eyes were alight with secrets, each flicker reflected in the dim streetlights, while urgency thrummed in the air around us. The echoes of chaos faded momentarily, but the shouts of police officers closing in created a ticking clock that threatened to drown out everything else. "Please, just tell me," I begged, clutching her arm tightly. I could feel her pulse racing beneath my fingertips, mirroring my own. "What do you mean?" But even as she opened her mouth, another shout shattered the moment. "Everyone down!" A police officer's voice boomed, escalating the tension as officers poured into the alley, weapons drawn, scanning the scene. "Morgan, we can't," I started, but before I could finish my thought, a sharp push from behind sent me sprawling forward. My heart raced at the realization that it was Jamie trying to shield us from the fray. "Get back!" he yelled again, his voice protective yet filled with frantic urgency. I felt panic rise in my chest as I glanced at the chaos unfurling beyond our makeshift sanctuary. A flash of movement caught my eye, and my heart dropped. The man who had held Morgan in his grip was darting away, fleeing down the alley, his shadow swallowed by the night. The police had a wider net to cast, and my pulse quickened. I had to know what Morgan was about to reveal, yet danger loomed just beyond our grasp. "Olivia!" Jamie shouted, pulling me closer to him, but I could see the inner struggle in his eyes, torn between the necessity of fleeing and the weight of unfinished conversations. "We can't stay here." My gaze snapped back to Morgan, who was now trembling, a storm of emotions coursing through her. "You don't understand," she whispered, laughter mixing with tears as the weight of her emotions took over. "You have to know, before it's too late. Morgan, please." I was becoming frantic, desperate for her to share the truth that had eluded me for so long. Suddenly, amid the chaos, I glimpsed something glimmering on the pavement near where Morgan had fallen, something small, metallic, and out of place. I reached for it instinctively, my fingers brushing against the cold surface as instinct kicked in. It was a pendant, elegantly engraved with a family crest I didn't recognize, but somehow felt unnervingly familiar. "Morgan, what is this?" I gasped, holding it up to her, hoping for clarity. Her eyes widened in recognition, and for a split second, the confusion on her face was replaced by sheer horror. "No," she breathed, her voice shaking. "You shouldn't have that." It's before she could finish, a shout erupted from the police officers. Hands in the air. "You're surrounded." Panic surged through me, pushing me to my feet. Suddenly, The world felt upside down like a kaleidoscope of broken promises and shattered truths. Morgan, just tell me, I urged, clutching the pendant as if it were a lifeline. Tell me what's happening. Who am I? The urgency crescendoed as her face paled, her lips trembling. You're more connected to this than you know, but disclosing it now, it could be the end of us. For an instant, everything fell silent, but for the steady drumbeat of my heart. Morgan. Jamie's voice was resonant with concern. We can't stay here. Please. Just run. But Morgan's gaze held something I couldn't decipher, a mixture of fear and trepidation as she weighed the choices between the terrifying unknown and attempting to share something monumental. Listen to me carefully, she said, her voice firm. The truth is, but then a flash of headlights tore through the alley like lightning, flooding us with blinding light. My instincts screamed at me to flee, yet my heart anchored me to that moment. Hanging in the balance like a captive bird that I in the morning, you will find out more than you ever hoped with that. Morgan suddenly turned, mustering her strength, and began rushing away, vanishing into the chaos even as I reached out. Morgan. No. I spun around, panic clawing at my chest, but the distance grew farther. I was left holding the pendant, feeling the weight of generations pressing down on me, an unshakable truth buried beneath layers of mystery. The world around me exploded with noise sirens blaring, shouts echoing, and the shadows dancing like phantoms, but all I could see were the remnants of unrealized connections and unanswered questions. Olivia. Jamie's voice snapped me to attention. We have to go. But as we took one step, I felt a disquieting shift in my heart. The pendant hung between us, heavy with destiny, a herald of unclaimed legacies waiting to be uncovered. I had no strength to turn back, but I also couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed irrevocably. Before I followed Jamie, I cast one last look down the alley, hoping to catch a final glimpse of Morgan. But shadows swallowed her whole, leaving only echoes of the truth we were meant to share and a haunting sense of impending unraveling that now guided my every breath. Whatever lay ahead, the stakes had risen impossibly high. A web of fate spun tighter, as more secrets hung like ripe fruit waiting to drop. My journey towards understanding was just beginning, but that moment of desperation would forever alter my path and foreshadow what I never expected to uncover. And as I turned to follow Jamie, my heart raced with dread and anticipation, sensing that the revelations I ultimately sought were lurking just out of reach, an overwhelming reality that threatened to reshape everything I had ever known. The blaring sirens faded gradually into the distance, but the weight of uncertainty clung to my chest like a heavy stone, suffocating precious breaths. Each step away from the chaos felt like a betrayal to the urgency that had coursed through my veins just minutes before. Jamie's hand was firm in mine, anchoring me to the present, yet my mind raced with questions, jolted every time I dared to glance at the pendant nestled tightly in my palm. Olivia. Jamie's voice broke through my reverie, his brow furrowed with concern. We need to get far away from here. You understand that, right? Yeah, I replied, though the word felt distant, swallowed by the whirlpool of emotions. I need to think. As we navigated through a labyrinth of alleyways, the cold air seemed to slice through the fog in my mind, sharp and invigorating. But each breath was a reminder of the tangled web around me, a kaleidoscope of emotions that spun wildly out of control. The pendant felt like a spark of truth in an otherwise dark existence. Olivia. Jamie insisted as we reached a deserted street, lit only by the orange glow of a flickering street lamp. You're not alone in this, okay? Whatever's happening, you can tell me. The earnestness in his voice sent waves of warmth trickling through the ice that had encased my heart. But before I could reply, a startling thought occurred to me. How much did Jamie actually know? Suddenly, the tangled threads of my feelings began to materialize into something clearer. With Morgan's words ringing in my ears, I realized our connection wasn't just about friendship, it was deeper. Something that bound us, yet eluded any attempt to grasp it fully. Morgan, I murmured incredulously, looking at Jamie through the veil of shadows and flickering light. She mentioned something about knowing the truth of who I really am. Do you think she was lying? Jamie's silence told me everything. There was something he wasn't saying, and my heart raced at the thought. Was it possible that he might know more about my past than I did? Olivia, he began, His gaze lowered, the hesitation palpable. There are some things about you that I've heard. I never wanted to bring them up. I didn't want to add to your pain. I felt it gnawing at the edges of my consciousness like a relentless predator, hungry for clarity. What do you mean? I pressed. You can't just drop hints and not explain. It's not my place, he murmured, shaking his head slowly. But there are rumors about your family and how you were taken from them. Nobody really knows how it happened, but there's talk. I spat, frustration erupting. That's not enough, Jamie. I need the truth. With a sigh that echoed my own turmoil, he released my hand, stepping back as if to create distance, emotional and physical. People believe you were part of something dangerous, Olivia. Something that could put you at risk even now. I care about you too much to just let this go. The words felt like needles piercing through the shroud of uncertainty. I searched his eyes for any sign of compassion to know that I wasn't alone in this, but uncertainty clouded our connection like static electricity, fraying the bond we once shared. But then the warmth returned as a stranger approached. An older gentleman in a gentle blue coat ambled toward us with an unexpected kindness, lifting my spirits even amidst the despair. You look like you could use a warm drink, he said with a soft smile. There's a cafe just around the corner. It's not safe out here. You should consider going inside. Jamie and I exchanged glances. There was a spark of hope in that simple offer, a lifeline provided by an unassuming stranger. I nodded, and we followed him into the cafe, the inviting aroma of coffee and fresh pastries wrapping around us like a warm hug. Inside, the cozy ambience washed over me, muffling the chaos of the world outside. I sought a table in the back, away from prying eyes, and only then did I attempt to steady my racing heart. As Jamie ordered us beverages, my gaze roamed over the cafe's eclectic decor, landing on the silver charm that hung around the waitress' neck. It was strikingly similar to the one I held. She caught my eye, and our brief exchange spoke volumes, a silent connection thread in this ever-complicated tapestry. Olivia, Jamie began, sliding back into his seat with a cup of steaming cappuccino in hand. His gaze was both earnest and fragile. Whatever happens next, I want you to know that I'm here for you. But we need to get out of here. I interrupted, pain lacing my tone. The thought of leaving stuck in my throat, a harsh reminder of the urgency that clawed at me. What if I'm just running away from the truth? From who I really am? Jamie leaned forward, his voice a whisper now. Then you have to find the full picture. Maybe talking to Morgan, no. I exclaimed, surprising even myself at the intensity of my response. I can't face her again, not after all this. She ran into the chaos like she was trying to escape. Why should I trust her with my secrets? Just then, the cafe door swung open, and my heart sank. A group entered, faces shrouded in shadow but then illuminated under the fluorescent lights. Their eyes scanned the room, seeking something or someone, and each pair of eyes felt like they ripped through the fabric of my serenity. My breath hitched in my throat. Olivia, Jamie's voice quivered as his head turned towards the newcomers. We have to go. Now. But as I glanced toward the trio, one face stood out, a young woman with deep-set eyes that held a promise of knowledge beyond my own, flickering with recognition. What drew me in was an inexplicable force, a magnetic pull that resonated through my core as I stood rooted to the spot. She stared back at me, and I could see the glimmer of familiarity, a reflection of something I had yet to understand. Olivia. Jamie's tone broke through my trance. Run, and just like that, the small flicker of hope was consumed by an engulfing darkness, the shadows closing in as realization hit me like a gut punch. My identity was a puzzle, and each piece that I uncovered led to something more profound, a truth that threatened to not only reshape my understanding of myself, but also to drag us all into the depths of danger. I felt the weight of inevitability press down around me. We were not out of the woods yet. Panic clawed at my throat as I turned, ready to flee, knowing all too well that I was standing on the precipice of a revelation that might shatter my entire world, only to discover that the past was not as buried as I had hoped. The door swung shut behind us, the fading sounds of the cafe melting into silence as I pulled Jamie down the nearest alley, heart racing with every step. I glanced back, half expecting to see the young woman tearing after us, but the shadows between the buildings swallowed her whole. The chaos of emotions churned within me like a storm: fear, confusion, a flickering thread of hope that felt dangerously close to unraveling. "What was that?" Jamie asked, his voice barely above a whisper, his warm breath floating in the thickness of the night air. Desperate to compose myself, I forced out a chuckle, though it was more like a shallow gasp. "I can't believe I almost froze up like that." "You're not yourself. Olivia, both know that," he replied, his eyes filled with an urgency that ignited a fire inside me. "Those people, they were looking for something. Or someone. We can't risk staying in this town, don't you see?" I stopped, pulling my hand free from his grasp, frustration boiling over. What if this is the sign I've been waiting for? What if they're the key to understanding who I really am? Or they could be the danger Morgan warned us about, Jamie countered, his expression torn between concern and a fierce loyalty that made my heart ache. What if they know something about your past that you don't? It could put you in harm's way. The darkness of the alley wrapped around us, obscuring our path ahead. I closed my eyes, visualizing the pendant still clenched tightly in my palm, its cold metal biting into my skin, grounding me. "I need to know. We can't just run away forever," I said, my voice quivering with frustration and determination. "I deserve to understand my past, Jamie. Forgetting the past doesn't mean escaping it," he said quietly, stepping closer to me, his proximity igniting an electricity that raced through my veins. "But recklessness can get you more hurt than you've already been." That I searched his eyes, longing for reassurance, yet unable to reconcile the conflicting emotions swirling within me. I wanted to trust him, but the thought of being swept away again felt like a terrifying dream. I needed to reclaim my identity, to face whatever darkness lay ahead. "Let's at least find out who they are," I said finally, stifling the anxiety that threatened to bubble over in my voice. "Maybe I can confront whoever that girl was. Or we could just get out of the city," he implored again, desperation edging his tone. But the flicker of hope buried beneath the weight of uncertainty was growing stronger, filling my chest with a burning resolve I couldn't ignore. And just like that, a plan took root amidst the fog of my thoughts. We go back to the cafe, but we stay hidden just long enough to see if they mention anything. If they don't feel like a threat, maybe we can talk to them. "Olivia," that's Jamie started, but I cut him off before he could finish his protest at "No more running," I asserted, holding his gaze, letting my need for clarity guide me. "I want to know if I'm more than a ghost in my own life. I'd rather face the shards of my broken past than hide in the shadows forever." The strength of my words hung between us, a delicate thread woven from a fabric of desperation and courage. With a resigned sigh, he nodded. "Okay, but we stick together, no matter what." And I felt a surge of gratitude and fear intertwine in my heart as we retraced our steps back to the cafe. The warmth of the building was now tainted with the fear of the unknown, and my skin prickled in anticipation. As we crept back through the door, it was as if the cafe itself was holding its breath, waiting to see how this revelation would unfold. We slid into a small booth at the far corner, shadows concealing us, but allowing a clear view of the trio who had entered just moments earlier. They gathered at the counter, quiet murmurs carrying through the air as I leaned in, tuning into their conversation like a moth drawn to a flame. "Do you think she knows?" The deep voice belonged to a tall man with tousled hair, his eyes darting around the cafe nervously. "Not yet, but we need to find her. Time is running out," said the young woman, the very one who had set my heart racing moments ago. Her gaze was sharp, fixated on the path we had taken moments before. The other woman nodded, her expression solemn as she piled a few coins onto the counter. "The council won't like this. We need to tread carefully." At that moment, the mention of a council sent a shiver coursing through my spine, impacting me with a chilling dread I could not shake. "What council? What were they involved in that made them seek me out so desperately?" I whispered to Jamie. "Did you hear that? They're looking for me." My voice trembled, both with fear and an unexpected thrill. "Olivia, maybe we should go," Jamie urged, the flashing concern in his eyes reflecting off the pent-up anxiety I held within. My heart clamored, desperation flaring. This could be my only chance to learn the truth. "I've come too far to turn back now." Before Jamie could respond, the tall man turned abruptly, locking his piercing gaze onto us, narrowing his eyes as though he recognized something. My breath caught in my throat, a split second of intense connection, followed by a rush of dread that filled the air around us. Fear clawed at my chest, but also something else, a flicker of recognition, like the first rays of dawn in a long, hopeless night. "Olivia?" he called, stepping forward, and all at once, every ounce of resolve broke against the tide of anxiety crashing over me. A haunting uncertainty thundered in my ears as I realized that standing on the precipice of my past might come at a steep price. A silence settled over the cafe. Every eye turned toward our table, questions hanging like the charged stillness in the air. I felt the weight of scrutiny like 1,000 needles, hearing the echo of my own name as the first crack in the facade of my carefully protected life echoed through time. The door behind us slowly swung open once more, the cool night air billowing into the cafe, darkening the already murky waters within. What had I opened? And what consequences would follow in the wake of a past I had barely begun to uncover? As Jamie's hand clenched around mine, the threads of fate were tightening, a promise that the wound had only begun to bleed. The air in the cafe became thick with tension, the silence growing heavier as all eyes focused on us. I could feel Jamie's panic echoing through the warmth of his grip on my hand, but a voice inside me urged for courage. This was the moment I had fought for, the chance to confront the shadows of my past. "Olivia?" The man's voice, filled with a strange mix of recognition and urgency, hung in the air like a spell. I held his gaze, uncertainty swirling with a flicker of familiarity deep within me. My heart hammered in my chest, stunned into silence as I processed the implications of my name reaching his lips. Could he hold the key to the answers I so desperately craved? "Who are you?" I asked, my voice steady yet laced with a trembling undertone. The words seemed too fragile to hold their weight, but determination pulsed within me, pushing against fear. Jamie squeezed my hand tighter, anchoring me to the present, to the reality that this moment might change everything. The man approached cautiously, his gaze unwavering, and I saw a blend of emotions flicker across his features: relief, fear, intensity, as if he were searching for something profound buried in my eyes. "You don't know me, but I've been looking for you," he said, voice low but firm. "My name is Alex, and you're in danger." Olivia.as his declaration settled, a rush of adrenaline shot through my veins. "What do you mean, danger? Who are you? What do you know about me?" The questions tumbled from my lips before I could filter them, but urgency overshadowed caution. Alex took another step closer, scanning the room as if he feared someone might overhear. "There are forces that will stop at nothing to keep the truth hidden, forces linked to your past, to your family," he murmured, glancing at the other two with him, one who wore a face of resolve and the other that radiated fierce determination. "You were meant to be found, to embrace your destiny." My heart raced at his words. Destiny? It sounded surreal, but even as doubt clawed at my reason, I felt drawn to this stranger. What about my mother? Is she involved in this? That question slipped out, fueled by an ache that had burrowed deep within me, demanding to be acknowledged. The expression on Alex's face shifted, gravity weighing heavily in the charged space between us. "Your mother made sacrifices to protect you, but she believed you were safe. Now it's time to uncover what she left behind." I opened my mouth to argue, to confront him with the pain of misunderstanding, but Jamie chimed in, his voice blaring with protective urgency. "We don't trust you. How do we know you're not just one of them? We're not going anywhere with you." Anger flared, sudden and fierce. "You don't know my life." I shot back, eyes darting between them. The feelings of betrayal I had felt during the wedding surged back like a tide. "I deserve answers more than anyone. If you know something," I hesitated, feeling the ground shift beneath me, the weight of uncertainty pressing against my chest with each heartbeat. "Please, you have to tell me." Just then, the cafe door burst open once more, and I felt the air in the room shift imperceptibly. My heart sunk. Familiar faces were streaming in me, past colliding violently with the present. My stepfather, frantic and searching, and beside him, my mother, her eyes filled with an urgency I didn't understand. "Olivia!" they shouted in unison, and time momentarily halted as the weight of their presence felt like an earthquake. "Stay away from her!" My stepfather roared, rage propelling him forward as he pushed against the throngs of customers, positioning himself like a fierce guardian. "Stop!" I cried, stepping toward him instinctively, heart pounding violently against my ribs, as if it were trying to break free. You don't understand. They might have answers. Answers? He shouted, a treacherous fury lacing his voice. The room dissolved into chaos as he pointed accusingly at Alex. You think you'll let them take you? I'd never forgive myself. Something twisted inside me at his desperation, but I couldn't let fear or protectiveness snatch away the progress I had begun to claim. I need to know, I exclaimed, my voice raw with emotion. It felt as though the walls were closing in, my own identity caught in a blizzard of familial loyalty and secrets I wasn't ready to face. Olivia, please, my mother's voice broke through the tension, a quiet plea wrapped in sorrow. She stepped forward, her eyes brimming with a reflection of deep regrets. Trust us. We've done everything we can to shield you. You have to understand. Just then, Alex broke into the heated exchange, his voice cutting through the fray. No. She needs to make her own choices. I've seen the patterns of this game and how lives are manipulated. He gestured to my parents, the power in his tone firm yet compassionate. And you must let her decide what path she will take. The tension broke around us in that moment, the air humming with uncertainty as an unspoken challenge lingered on the edges of reality. Could I trust Alex? Could I lay bare my vulnerabilities before them while grappling with the demons of my past? Or should I continue to follow the comforts of betrayal and heartache? I looked at my mother, pleading, hoping she could see the churning questions in my eyes, questions that begged for release, for understanding. If this is something that's been hidden from me all along, if it could help me find out who I really am, I need to know, even if it hurts. My voice trembled as I felt the connection between all of us, a great tapestry woven of choices and consequences, each tugging me in various directions that in that moment, I realized I had the power to choose. There was heartbreak waiting ahead, yet also pieces of a life waiting to be reclaimed. The truth might shatter everything I thought I knew, but perhaps the only way to find healing amidst the fractures was to embrace it wholly. With fragile clarity, I took a step toward Alex, feeling the weight of my decision pulse through me. Let's start unraveling the threads of the past together, I said, steadying my breath and grounding my resolve. I want to understand all of it. As our eyes locked, the world around me shifted, an unbreakable bond forming between danger and the truth I was ready to face. The tears spilled over, but this time they felt like the sweet release of a heavy burden lifted. And no matter the cost, let's uncover every secret that's kept us apart. The room held its breath, the collision of uncertainty and newfound strength radiating as I stood at the crossroads, ready to embrace the painful truth of my identity, the truth that could finally set us all free. And as my parents stepped forward, their faces painted with a mix of love and trepidation, I understood the chase for answers had only just begun. In that silence, a heartbeat later, my mother reached out, her hand trembling, poised to bridge the chasm that had long divided us. Every breath felt monumental, every moment a choice that would echo through the arcs of time. I took that step, reflecting on how every piece of the puzzle would soon come together, a picture that held the promise of healing. This was the path I had chosen, destined to reconcile the past and embrace the unknown. Whatever happens next, I'm ready, I whispered, facing the void of unclaimed futures. And in the solemn embrace of truth, I realized the only way to transcend was to dive deeper into the tempest of my own unraveling. If this journey brought me to what had always been meant to be, then my final ascent toward clarity would forever redefine who I had always dared to be, an unyielding pursuit of love, connection, and acceptance.